Yes, good day, grade 10 life science students. We are just meeting today to quickly discuss and uh, analyze the nutrient cycles. So this is term 3 work, and we just want to look at the various nutrient cycles, which I just want to ensure that we critically analyze them and we are able to answer diagrammatic questions that would arise from them. So basically, nutrient cycles, it refers to the movement and exchange of organic and inorganic matter back into the production of living matter. So what we need to understand is that there is a movement, a continuous cycle movement of exchange of organic and inorganic matter, which is actually supposed to be taken back into the production of living matter. So the production of living matter, we are talking about, like saying living organisms, they depend on dead organisms, they depend on decomposition of matter in order for them to survive. So in this regard, it is very important to understand that this process is basically regulated, or it is basically controlled. It is controlled, it is regulated, it is controlled, it depends, is controlled by the food web pathways, the interaction of organisms. It is controlled by interaction. It is controlled by interaction of organisms. We are talking about extensive interaction, the extensive relationship of organisms within their ecosystems, which decompose matter into inorganic nutrients, and they occur within ecosystems. Ecosystems also identifying the interdependentness of organisms. Organisms, we are saying organisms are continuously interacting with each other. So the continuous interaction of organisms with each other in the ecosystems is therefore responsible, is also, it's actually providing as a continuation of cycle of nutrients within various ecosystems. So now, without wasting any time, I want us to understand that these nutrient cycles, I want us to look at examples of them. We are saying example, we are going to look at carbon, we are going to look at carbon cycle. We are going to look at nitrogen cycle. We are going to look at nitrogen cycle. We are going to look at oxygen cycle. And finally, the water cycle. The water cycle or hydrological cycle. These systems, hydrological cycles, we are looking at these, and we need to understand that this actually identifies the various elements that are very important in an ecosystem. For us to be able to understand and to have ecosystems existing, there should be there should be elements that are actually facilitating the survival of organisms in there. So the hydrological cycle is one of the most important, it is one of the most important cycle that we need to look at, which we can also need to critically analyze. So let us just quickly look at the carbon cycle. The carbon cycle, I'm sure that we understand that the atmosphere actually it contains something like around 0.035% carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide that we have in the atmosphere is around 0.035, and it is actually the basic building blocks of organic materials. Carbon is the basic building blocks. It is the basic element needed in the building or in the formation of organic materials, and therefore of living organisms. So most of the carbon on Earth can be found in the crust, which is, we are saying, in the Earth, and other reservoirs of carbon include the ocean and the atmosphere. So we are saying sources of carbon reservoirs, we are saying the places where oxygen, where carbon is stored. It is the ocean and the atmosphere, and as well as the Earth's crust. So we want to look into that. So we have got a diagram that is actually identifying the carbon cycle that that we are going to look at. We are looking at the carbon cycle. I want us to understand that in exams, we normally find questions that are given there where you need to know to say what is each arrow representing. So from the trees, we have got photosynthesis, carbon dioxide, carbon dioxide is used by plants during photosynthesis. We have got also the auto factory emissions, which also emits carbon gases in the atmosphere, like we are saying. They are also released into the atmosphere there. So now, what we need to understand is that we have got animal and plant, they also do respire, which is also shown by the arrows here, which is showing the release of carbon into the atmosphere, which we are saying through what? Through respiration. Through respiration. And then we have got also uh, the cycle continuously taking place. When animals, they die, they also they decompose, and their waste also are released into the what? Into the soils or into the earth. So we have got fossils on this side. We can say fossils or other fossil fuels. So we have got fossils there. And then this is basically a diagrammatic representation of the carbon cycle, which you would see in various cases when exams come, or when we are in exams, we are going to find out questions such as these. So plants and animals, they always respire. Therefore, they are releasing what? Carbon dioxide. And then from factories, from manufacturing, from industries, we have got also emission of carbon, which is also released into the atmosphere, as we can see there. So plants, they also take, we also have plant roots, also respiration, and we have got this explanation that I'm going to run through right now, which is supposed to be understood that combustion, we are talking about burning of wood and fossil fuels by factories and auto emissions transfer carbon into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. We are saying gases are burning of fuels. Burning of fuels releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which we need to understand that it can be from industries, it can be from every other means through which fuel is burned. It releases carbon into the atmosphere, which we refer in other terms as to say carbon gases that are in the atmosphere, which sometimes we can say they are greenhouse gases that we find there, greenhouse gases that are released into the atmosphere. So now, what we need to understand is that factories release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere by burning of fossils. And then photosynthesis, what happens there in the carbon cycle? Carbon dioxide is taken up by plants during photosynthesis and is converted into energy-rich organic molecules, which are glucose, which contain also carbon. I'm sure I remember very last time we talked about, is carbon dioxide necessary for photosynthesis? For photosynthesis to take place, it is always very important that carbon dioxide is important. The gaseous exchange between plants and animals. Plants and animals gaseous exchange. The gaseous exchange between plants and animals, it involves the exchange of gases from plants, whereby they release what? They give out oxygen, and also animals giving out what? Carbon dioxide. Giving out carbon dioxide, which we need to understand that the carbon dioxide is the one that is actually used by plants. So there is a gaseous exchange that we need to understand, which always occurs when we talk about photosynthesis being provisioned and allowed or actioned because of the existence of plants and animals. And then metabolism Now autotrophs convert carbon into organic molecules like fatty carbohydrates and plants. For organic molecules like fatty, like carbohydrates and proteins, which animals eat. We are talking about autotrophs. We talk about vegetation. Vegetation class. Vegetation, it actually makes its own food. When vegetation is making its own food, we are saying it is converting carbon into organic molecules. There is absorption of nutrients. Vegetation, it absorbs soil nutrients. These soil nutrients, they are converted into what? Into fats, into carbohydrates and proteins, which animals can eat. So we are looking at the interrelationship that takes place within an ecosystem, where we are saying that the plants, they take in decaying organisms or decomposition, which is shown here. We are saying the decomposition which is taking place because we are talking about every dead material. We are talking about plants and animals. As they die, they are releasing nutrients into the soil, which are actively absorbed by what? By vegetation. And then the trees are now converting that carbon into fats, into carbohydrates and proteins. Therefore, animals can eat them. So we need to look into that. And then cellular respiration, animals eat plants. Animals eat plants for food, taking up the carbon, the organic carbon, which is carbohydrates. For example, plants and animals break down these carbon molecules during the process of cellular respiration and release energy. I'm sure that we have talked about the process of respiration. That respiration, it is the breaking down of what? Of glucose by in the presence of oxygen. So therefore, carbon dioxide, water, and energy are produced. So carbon dioxide is therefore released back into the atmosphere during gaseous exchange. So I'm sure that we are quite aware that we have got glucose plus oxygen they are breaking down to have carbon dioxide plus water plus energy. So now what we need to understand is that glucose is broken down in the presence of oxygen. So therefore carbon dioxide, we have got water, and then we have got energy being released in the process. So this is a cellular respiration process which is showing the breaking down of what? Of organic carbon, which we are saying carbohydrates that are produced or that have been eaten by animals. And then when that happens, the carbohydrates are metabolized. They are broken down. So therefore, when does that occur? It occurs during cellular respiration. And then we have got number 3, the precipitate, which carbon dioxide in the atmosphere can also precipitate, or it can also rain as a carbonate in ocean sediments. So precipitate, which we are saying it is in the atmosphere, also it precipitates, it rains as carbonate in oceans. And then decomposition, carbon dioxide gas is also released into the atmosphere during decomposition and all in the atmosphere during the decay of all organisms. We are saying when organisms die, they are decomposed, they are broken down by microorganisms, they are decomposed, so that when decomposition occurs, dead organisms and waste products, we are saying fossils, we are saying these, when they are dead, microorganisms, they release the carbon again into the what? Into the atmosphere. We have got carbon also released into the what? Into the atmosphere. which is what we are actually identifying now. So fossilization captures carbon in the soil as coal and oil. Fossilization, which we can actually identify to say that we have got fossilization which is taking place, which we can say it can occur here. Fossilization, it can occur there. So what we need to understand is that it also one of the processes that is involved in the carbon cycle, which is capturing carbon in the soil as coal and oil, and then weathering and mineralization of soils and rocks also release carbon into the environment. We are seeing the breaking down. This is the weathering. We are talking about the breaking down of massive part of rocks into small particles, that is soil. We are saying when rocks break down, they actually form soil. So during the process of breaking down of rocks, carbon is also released into the environment. Mineralization, we are just talking again, that is a process that is responsible in terms of carbon cycle. So I'm sure that we are able to answer. Also refer to the previous question that we have answered. We have got questions on the channel which has got to do with the technical questions that are asked with regard to the carbon cycle. So please refer to that as well. So we want to look at oxygen cycle. Oxygen cycle, we have got also as an oxygen cycle, which we say that we are talking about nutrient cycle. So we also have oxygen cycle, which you can see here. We have got I can take it from this side, from the bottom side upwards. What is happening is that we have got a continuous interaction that is taking place in an ecosystem where we have got nitrifying bacteria which are converting nitrites in the soil, and then they convert them into nitrates. We have got denitrifying bacteria. It is changing nitrogen in the soil to what? To nitrogen in the atmosphere. We have got atmosphere on this on the arrow going up here. And then what happens again is that nitrogen in the atmosphere, it is now converted back into the soil. It is being taken back into the soil by nitrogen fixing bacteria, leaving, we are saying the nitrogen fixing bacteria, it is in what? In plants. We can talk about legume. We have got legume plants, such as we have got, for example, we can talk about nuts, ground nuts. We can talk about beans, soya beans. There are types of plants that can also have the ability to fix nitrogen into the soil. So we are given now that the legume plants that are having the capacity of having some root nodules which are able to fix nitrogen into the soil. They increases the soil fertility. So we have got also ammonification, which is nitrogen fixation by soil bacteria again that we are seeing, which is also soil bacteria that is there. So what happens again is we have got vegetation, which is plants. Our plants, they absorb also nitrogen from what? From the soil. We call that assimilation. The plant roots also takes nitrogen from the soil, and then we have got also plants, they can also die. When they die, we have got decomposers, which can be also aerobic and anaerobic bacteria and fungi that are responsible for decomposing the plants as they die. And then as that happens, it is also a process that is also adding nitrogen into the soil. Nitrogen is again added into the soil. So what needs to be understood is these arrows are all showing different processes that are taking place, which as learners you need to know. Here is just representing animals. This is representing animals. They also die and they also decompose. We are also showing or seeing decomposition of the animals. So decomposition is taking place, which also adds nutrients or nitrogen into the soil. So this is a basic flow diagram that represents the nitrogen cycle, which we are entitled to know. It is a must-know diagram as we go to our exams. So nitrogen, actually, it makes up most of the gas in the atmosphere. About 78% of the gas in the atmosphere is nitrogen. So nitrogen is important for living organisms and is used in the production of amino acids, proteins, and nucleic acids are made up also of nitrogen. So nitrogen gas uh, present in the air is not available for organisms. Nitrogen gas, when it is in the atmosphere, please note that it is not available to organisms and thus has to be made available in the form of absorbable by plants and animals. So when nitrogen is in the atmosphere, it is unavailable, it is not important, it is important but not in the usable form. So it has to be made available to plants and animals, which is because of some few processes that we are going to discuss now. So only a few single-celled organisms like bacteria can use nitrogen from the atmosphere directly. Single-celled organisms like bacteria can actually use the nitrogen from the atmosphere directly. For plants, nitrogen has to be changed into other forms. It has to be converted. It has to be changed. It has to be converted. We are talking about the changing. We are talking about the nitrification. We are talking about the nitrification process, e.g. nitrates into ammonium. So nitrates being changed into ammonium, this process is called nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation, the means or the process by which nitrogen is converted from its other forms into a usable form, or we are talking about nitrates into ammonium. I'm sure we have got also even the artificial supply of nitrogen to plants through the ammonium compound that we have, which is artificially made as a fertilizer in our industries. So what we need to understand is that when nitrogen is in the air, it is unavailable to plants and animals. Hence, it has to be converted. It has to be changed. It has to be nitrification. There need to be nitrogen fixation that has to take place. So we call that process nitrogen cycle. So we want to look at the nitrogen cycle. It involves one nitrogen cycle. It involves lightning. Nitrogen can be changed into nitrate directly by lightning. Nitrogen fixation. This is also fixation of nitrogen. Nitrogen fixation can be done through lightning. The rapid growth of algae after thunderstorms is because of this process. I'm sure you've seen algae, which is growing in water reservoirs, which actually increases the amount of nitrate that falls onto the earth in rainwater, acting as a fertilizer. So when it is raining and there is thunder and lightning, that thunder and lightning, it is also helping in the nutrient cycle by nitrogen fixation, whereby we are seeing there is nitrogen into the soil, which is done by increasing the nitrates that falls from the earth in the form of rain and also acting as fertilizer. So we have got also absorption, ammonium and nitrates are absorbed by plants through their roots. Plants actually they absorb ammonium and nitrates. Ammonium and nitrates are absorbed by plants through their roots. We are talking about the assimilation of nutrients into by plants they actually do that through absorption. And then ingestion is also animals and plants, they get their nitrogen supplies by eating. Ingestion, we are talking about consumption. Consumption, which is actually by eating plants and animals, by eating plants or eating plants or plant eating animals. So now what is happening is taking in of nitrogen. It is through eating. Plants and animals get their nitrogen supplies by eating plants or plants eating animals. So now what we are saying is that there is a nitrogen intake which is taking place through what? Through that consumption. And then we do have decomposition, which is done through bacteria and fungi, break down proteins and amino acids from plants and animals after they die. After they die, we have got the decomposition taking place, which is, I'm saying, breaking down of proteins and amino acids from plants and animals by bacteria through the decomposition process. That is also a means through which nitrogen is added into the what? Into the soils. And then ammonification. Ammonification, the nitrogenous breakdown products of amino acids are converted into ammonium by these decomposing bacteria. Ammonification, we are just saying the nitrates are changed into ammonium. It is the nitrates being changed into ammonium by the decomposing bacteria. So therefore, it can be made available to plants. So plants can be able to absorb it. And then we have got nitrification, conversion of ammonium into nitrates by nitrifying bacteria. Nitrification, it is the, we are saying the nitrifying bacteria. As you can see, we have got ammonium, we have got our ammonium, which is changed into nitrates. And then this is nitrification. Nitrification, ammonium being changed into nitrates. Therefore, this is also a process through which ammonium is changed into nitrates by nitrifying bacteria. And then denitrification. Obviously, in this case, what we need to understand is called denitrification, because we are saying bacteria convert ammonium and nitrates into nitrogen and nitrogenous oxide, and it is returned into the atmosphere to start the cycle over again. So the denitrification, it is now the release of the nitrogen, which is from the soil by bacteria, and then we are saying it is actually made into the atmosphere, therefore to be able to start over the cycle again. The cycle starts over again by denitrification. The denitrification, you can see that we are saying nitrates, which we are seeing here, denitrifying bacteria, nitrates are changed or are changed to be into the atmosphere, converted to be nitrogen in the atmosphere by a denitrifying bacteria, which we are seeing the denitrifying bacteria, it is actually doing the denitrification, which is also an important process that we need to understand. I guess that has been explained and we can be able to relate and understand it very well. We have got the water cycle, which I said again, it can be called the hydrological. It can also be called the hydrological cycle. We are talking about this is water changing state. Water, it changes into various states, changes into various states of matter to allow the cycle, to facilitate the cycle, to facilitate the cycle that we are talking about. The hydrological cycle, it has got water movement into various or changed into various states. We can start it from evaporation, We are saying this is, we can say this is a sea, this is an ocean, and then there is evaporation, which is caused by the sun. We have got evaporation here. Evaporation being, which is caused because of the presence of what? Of the incoming heat from the sun. And then when evaporation takes place, we are talking about water being changed into gaseous form by heat, and then we have got condensation that is taking place there, and then we have got rainfall, which is precipitation, and then we have got the cycle continuously running. We have got surface flow showing water flowing on top of the ground. We have got water loss from transpiration, water loss from vegetation. And then we also even have absorption, water uptake, absorption of water by plants. And then we also have infiltration, which is taking place there. Percolation is also taking place, and then surface runoff, snowfall, which is also having water that is falling from, you can say it can be mountainous or mountainous regions, and then we have that. So we want to look on the hydrological cycle. We need to be able to analyze it, which is very important again. It forms an important component of this. Is we are talking about water. Water forms an important component of most life forms, with about 70% of water, 70% of plants and animals being composed of water. Plants and animals, we are saying they are made up of about 70%, and then vast amounts of water cycle through atmosphere, oceans, and whatever it is, and the biosphere. It is the movement of water there. And then this cycling of water is called the hydrological cycle, the water cycle. The cycling of water is important in determining of our weather. It determines our climate and supports plants' growth and makes life possible. The hydrological cycle, it is very important in order to allow life to continue. It supports the weather conditions. It is the one that defines the climate. So I have got the definition of major terms that are involved in the hydrological cycle here. Evaporation, most water evaporates from the what? From the oceans, where water is found in highest abundance. However, some evaporation also takes place in ocean, in lakes, rivers, and also flowing rain, water that flows on the ground. So we are talking about water being changed into what? Into water vapor. Water changes into water vapor because of the incoming solar heat. And then we have got transpiration. Is the water loss from the surface area, particularly the stomata of the plants. Transpiration accounts for about 50% of based evaporation and 10% of total evaporation. So transpiration, we are saying loss of water, from vegetation. Loss of water from vegetation is what we call transpiration. And then it is actually lost from the plant leaves through the stomatas, the holes that are found on the surface of the leaf. And then evapotranspiration, it is loss of water from both. It is both loss of water from both plants and animals. When water is lost from both plants and animals, we call that evapotranspiration. So process of evaporation and transpiration collectively referred as what? Evapotranspiration. That is what we mean by evapotranspiration. So condensation, the process through which water vapor is converted back into liquid, is what we call condensation. When it evaporates into the atmosphere, it is converted into liquid. It is through the cooling system. When water, it is through the cooling system, which is loss of heat. When water, when warm west wind, or when loss of heat from warm moist air, from warm moist, the air that is rising from the air that is originating from various sources. It can be water, places, sea, it can be rivers, it can be lakes, and also vegetation. All that we are saying, you may have observed a similar process during occurring when dew drops from the plant leaves, and also cold or on cold grass. Water in the atmosphere condenses to form clouds, are formed through condensation. And then precipitation, we are talking about the raining process. Water returns to the earth through precipitation in the form of rain. It can be sleet, it can be snow. And then when rain occurs due to precipitation, most of it runs into the lakes and rivers, while a significant portion sinks into the ground, a process that we call infiltration. A process that we call infiltration. And then infiltration, the process through which water sinks into the ground, is known as infiltration and is determined by the soil type. It is determined by the soil type or rock type through which water moves. During the process of sinking into the earth's surface, water is filtered and purified depending on the soil type and depth to which water is sunk, and then it becomes it is continuously being purified. The deeper it goes, the better it becomes clean. So melting and freezing, some water freezes and is locked up in ice, such as in the glaciers and ice sheets. Similarly, water sometimes melts and is returned to oceans and to seas. We talk about the melting of water, the reasons being that it can be caused because of what? Because of increase in global temperatures that would result in melting of ice waters from glaciers. Let me just quickly finish by looking at oxygen cycle. Is one of the main gases, which is oxygen, found in the air along with nitrogen, and then oxygen is recycled between the air and living organisms through the breathing and respiration. So organisms such as animals and plants take in oxygen from the air during breathing. I'm sure we have looked at that and said that gaseous exchange facilitates what? The oxygen cycle. And then the oxygen is used for cellular respiration, which we have already identified in the previous in the beginning of this presentation there. So to release the to be released to release energy from organic nutrients such as what? Such as glucose. We said that respiration, breaking down of glucose, releases energy from the organic nutrients such as glucose, that one. So photosynthesis, plants also make their own food, and then they absorb carbon dioxide from the air to synthesize sugars and release the oxygen that we are talking about. There is a complementary relationship between photosynthesis and what? And respiration, in that the former produces oxygen and the latter consumes what? Oxygen. It consumes that oxygen. So thank you very much for your time, and we are going to meet again in the next presentation. Don't forget to like and subscribe and also share the videos. Thank you very much.